Hi, in this video I'm going to present how to connect Vensim to databases with ODBC or Open Database Connectivity. It is important to note that ODBC works only with Vensim DSS, the version that I'm working on, and the full Vensim DLL. It's not available for Vensim PLE. It's not also working on the Macintosh. The whole idea of connecting Vensim to database is pretty simple. You can read your constant values, your data variables, and lookups from a database. Actually, this reading process is done at the beginning of a simulation. And after your simulation runs, you can write the simulation output to a database. Here, I'm going to show how to connect Vensim to Microsoft Access. Let's start with a very simple model. Let's say I have variable 1, variable 2, and variable 3, and I'm going to read variable 1 and variable 2 from my database, and variable 3 would be simply summation of variable 1 and variable 2. Since variable 1 and variable 2 are going to read from my database, the type should be data. The same setup for variable 2. Okay, so here is my model. It's pretty simple. To connect this model with the database, I need to have a database too. So let's create a database. A blank database. Let's name it as DB, and it is good to put all of your files in the same directory. I just created this folder on my desktop, and I'm going to save my database in the example folder. Create. Okay, this is my database, and I'm going to develop it later. So to connect this model with this database, I need to have a VDI file that is actually Vensim database input. To create a VDI file, first you should create a plain text file. Let's name it as input. And then you need to go to Vensim and file, then edit file. Okay, first I need to save my Vensim model. Let's save it in the example folder and name it as example. Okay, so I'm going to edit file, and I'm opening up this input that is text document. It's not yet VDI. So here I can write my keywords to create a VDI file. At the very beginning of your VDI, this is not yet a VDI, it's still text, but I'm going to save it as VDI. At the very beginning, you should have connect keyword. To put a connection keyword, you simply go to insert ODBC connection, and here MS Access Database. If you are using with any other format like ACCDB, you can simply create it from here. I'm using MDB. It is by default here, so I'm going with this one. I already created this one because I had another example using ACCDB. It's not really necessary to have login name and password. I'm just putting admin as login name, and then here I'm going to select my database. Okay, I'm getting error. I guess probably because my database is open here. Let's close it, and yep, work. Okay, after connect keyword, I'm going to put another keyword that is data. Remember, we have only 2 variables, and we are going to read values for those variable 1 and variable 2 from database. Let's develop a little bit our database. Okay, so let's create the first table. Let's design it here and name it as var lookup. I don't need this ID as primary key, and it's only a number. And let's name this one field as variable. Yes, okay. So in this table, I have ID and variable. I'm just going to assign an ID to each variable. For instance, for variable 1, ID is 1. And for variable 2, ID is 2. So I need another table too. Let's create another table because that table is only for assigning ID. In this table, I'm going to enter the values for each variable. Let's say, let me design it. And let's name it as variables, or make it more clear, var value. I don't need ID to be primary, and it's just number. And here, let's say this is my variable value, and it's number. There you go. Yes. Okay. So my variable 1 has ID as 1. 1 is variable 1. And okay, one thing that is missing here is a very important field, and that is time, because variables are actually associated with time. So I kind of forgot to create this field too. I'm just naming it as t, and it's number 2. Yes. Okay. So let's say variable 1 at time 1 is like 100, and variable 1 is 200 at time 2, variable 1 is 300 at time 3, and variable 2 is 5 at time 1, variable 2 is 10 at time 2, and 15 at time 3. Let's save it. So we have a very simple database, and so let's create our VDI file. So after this data, I'm going to say var ID as ID. This var ID is actually a Vensim keyword. Let me make this smaller. I'm going to show you the database and my VDI at the same time. This ID is the name of this field, and this var ID is the keyword for Vensim. If you don't have a variable ID, you should use var name, but I'm not going to use it here. So I'm going to read my variable at this time. So it is very important to have time. And remember, in my table, time was t. And value for each variable is this column, that is variable value. Okay, and the last thing for data is select. I'm actually saying that which table should be read for this data. So I'm getting data from this table, that is var val. But since I've already assigned an ID to each variable, I'm going to use var lookup here. Var lookup here. And let me show you my var lookup table. var ID is ID, this one, and var name is variable. Okay, and the last one, you have to tell Vensim which table you're selecting. My table is var lookups. Without this. Okay, that's it. So let's just save this file as VDI, Vensim database input. This is my VDI file. Let's go back to the model we have here. So the next step is going to simulation control here, and should go to the last tab, pre-post. If you are reading data from your database, you should set your VDI file as a pre-file. So yeah, VDI example and input. If you are writing your simulation output, you should use this box. And let's set this. Okay, and let me also open my input VDI file here so you can see what's going on in both of my model and my VDI file. Okay, let me run my model. It works. I don't get any error, so let's check for variable 1. It is 100, 200, 300 at time 1, 2, and 3. And variable 2, 5, 10, and 15 at time 1, 2, 3 respectively. So variable 3 is a summation of those two variables. That was how to read variables from database. In next step, I'm going to show you how to get constant also from database. So let's put a constant here and name it as like C1, and my variable 3 would be something like variable 1 plus variable 2 multiplied by C1. And C1 is just constant. You can put whatever you like here. If I start with 1, it's not really important because once you get your constant value from your database, this value is going to be changed. Okay, and let's go to database and let me create another table for my constant, and I'm going to name this as cons. ID is just a number, and here I'm going to set my constant value, that would be number 2. So let's say cons val. That's it. Let's save it. So because in that var lookup we already assigned ID 1 for variable 1 and ID 2 for variable 2, let's go there and assign ID 3 for C1, and then I'm going to use that ID here. So let's say it's something like 1000. Then I'm going to my Vensim model Okay, let me maximize this page. And here, well, it's always good to keep this var lookup at the end. So let me go with constants and var id is again id, and value is, let me check with my database. So for constant table, yes, var id is id and value is cons val. And the last and very important keyword is select. That tells Vensim what table should it use for this constant. So the table name is cons. And that's it. Let's just save this and let me run my Vensim model. I didn't get any error. Hopefully it worked. C1. Okay, my values is still 1. Oops. So, because I missed a very important step here, and that is actually here in a pre-post tab, I put input VDI file, and that is only for variables. It's not working for constants because variable is associated with time and it's changing over time, but constant only changes one time. So you should come to this changes tab and load changes from that VDI file. So hopefully it works. Okay, database variable id3 not mapped to variable main data ignored. Okay, let me see what is wrong here. Okay, so here they have, and I already assigned C1. Okay, so let me save this database and close it. Sometimes it happens. Let me run the model again. Yes, it worked. Probably I didn't save my table, and so that was a problem. Let me check. Yes, it's 1000. And so your variable 3, you see we got C1, that was a constant, and it's only one time. It's not changing over time. And variables are actually changing over time. So you should continue this assigning different values at different time for your variables. Okay, so the next step would be reading lookups from your database. In this part of video, I'm going to show you how to read lookup values from database. If you remember for the previous part, constants, we entered 1 as the value for C1, but actually after simulation runs, you see it's 1000 because it changed. So it's almost same for lookup. Let me create a lookup here. Type should be lookup. As same as constant, I have to enter some points. If I go to as graph, it's much easier to enter here. So I have 0, 0 and 0, 1. So just 2 points. It's good enough. And that's it. So here in my VDI file, should be lookups. And let me create the table in my database. So I need a new table. Let me design it. Let's name it as lookup val. It's not necessary to be primary number. Okay, let's say the first one is x, that is number, and the second one is y, it's number as well. So I don't really need to use any name because I already assigned all of my IDs in variable lookup table. So okay, I'm going to assign ID 4 for lookup here, my lookup in my model. Okay, and so let's assign some points. Should be ID should be 4. Let's say at x0, x0, at x, oops, at 1, let's say like 5, whatever, it's not really important here. The last one. Okay, let me save this. Make sure to save up your tables sometimes, and it's actually good to close your tables. Okay, so for my lookups, what I have is var ID, which was main ID, and I had my x was x, and my y was y. This x is keyword, this y is keyword too, and this x is what I entered as the field name in my database, and this is the field name of my database for y. Okay, and then I need select, and my table name is lookup val. So let's just run this model. It worked. Didn't get any error. So let's just check it. And so these are the values I entered into my database, and they're all read from database here into my Vensim model. To read a variable with different subscripts, let me create a new variable. Let's name it as variable 4. And let's connect it to variable 3. So plus variable 4. Okay, and let me define new subscripts. Okay, my Vensim doesn't work. Okay, I'm gonna pause this video recording. Oh, it comes up. Okay. Subs, and let's just have sub S1 and S2, and let's assign those subscripts to variable 4. So you see that variable 4 has subscripts, and I'm gonna read this variable from my data. So it should be data, and let me make sure that the formula here is correct. Okay. If you are not familiar with subscripts, I would recommend you to watch another video that explains how to use subscripts. I'm gonna put a link at the end of this video where you can find more videos about subscripts and other stuff. Okay, let me go to variable lookup, and let's edit this table a little bit. I'm going to add another column as subs, and it should be text. Yes. Let's say ID5 is for variable 4 and S1, and same variable at subscripts 2 has the ID of 6, and let's assign some values for this variable 5 and 6. Okay, so ID is 5. Let's say like 1000 at time 1. Same variable 2000 at time 2, and same variable 3000 at time 3. And same variable but different subscripts. That would be 6. Let's say it's just 5000 at time 1, 6000 at time 2, and 7000 at time 3. And let's save this one. Let's make sure that this is this one is 2. Okay. So there is no need to define that subscript here, because you already defined your subscripts in your variable lookup table. So it's not necessary to put that subscripts here. What I need is just adding sub, and what I named my subscript was subs. So, and okay, let's run the simulation. My Vensim is only slow here. Okay, and let's see what is the error. Database variable ID6 not mapped to variable name, and no data found for variable 4. Let's see what is ID6, and okay, this is ID5 and ID6. For that 4. I guess everything looks fine to me. Let me just close all of my tabs and let me save my. It's already saved, so let me run it again. It worked. Okay, and just make sure. Oh, okay. I see only subscripts 1, so I need to select subscripts 2 to see the values in that graph, in that list. It's kind of slow. I'm using a very fast computer, but Vensim sometimes doesn't like me. So, okay, here we go. You see 1000, 2000, 3000, 5000, 6000, and 7000. So that's it. We reviewed how to get variables with different subscripts and constants and lookup. In the next part, I'm going to show you how to write simulation results to your database. In previous example, I presented how to read from your database. Here, I'm showing how to write simulation output into your database. For writing your output result into your database, we need to have a VDO, that is Vensim database output. Let me just bring up my VDI file here. So since I'm going to write my simulation output into the same database, the connect file would be same for VDO. This is VDI. So to create a VDO, I can just save this file as VDO. So let me just go to save as, and let me name it as output, and it should be VDO. So for VDO, var lookup should come first. I just cut that var lookup and I paste it here. Okay, var lookup needs to happen first, and it must have both var ID and var name. So my var lookup has var ID and var name. I'm not using sub here, so I can remove that. Select var lookup, okay, because I'm using the same database, so table would be same. Okay, after var lookup, let me have this dataset. And dataset is actually only for video file. We don't use dataset in VDI. And dataset specifies the dataset that data will be extracted from. So I have to write dataset name here, but if I use an exclamation point here, it actually indicates that the current run name should be used as the source dataset, and current run name is current for my simulation run. After that dataset, I'm going to use data, and this data here, it actually specifies that data will be written as time and value pairs. So let's go to database and create new table for values that are going to be written into my database. Let's create a new table and let's name it as data output. Let's use T for time, which is number, and variable val, that is number, that is actually the value of your variable. And let's say something like run name, or the name of your simulation run should be text. ID T variable val and run name. So after data, you can use execute delete from. It helps if you already have anything in your database, any values, that removes all of your values in that table and writes new values. So you should specify the name of that table, which was data output. And after this execute delete from, I'm going to use var list. You can list all of your variables that you need to write into your database. Let's say var1 and var2. Just pay attention that after var list you don't need to use colon before this var1 and var2. Okay, we have var ID, that is ID, and time is T. That's what I use into my database. And value, let me make sure, I used variable val, so variable val. And instead of select, for video file you should use insert and name of your table, data output. It is really helpful to get the name of your simulation run. You can use field keyword. Since I used run name, I have to follow the same name here, that is run name. And if I use exclamation point, that use the current name of my simulation run, which comes from this box. Okay, this is for data. So for constants, let's create the same table and let's name it as constant or const out. It's going to have ID and let's say const val, that's the value of your constant. which is number, and run name. That is the name of your simulation run. ID, constval, and run name. So again, you can use execute delete from keyword, and you should use the name of your table, that is cons out. Same as data, you can use var list in case if you have more than one constant, but here we have only C1. It's not actually necessary to use var list. And I have var ID and value constval. Let me just make sure that I'm using the same name here, constval. Right? And instead of select, you should use insert, name of your table, that is cons out. And before this, you can use field. I use run name, so run name to get the name of simulation run into your table. So I'm going to write variable 1, variable 2, and C1 into database, which would be variable 1 and variable 2 into data output table, and C1 into cons out table. Now let's run the simulation and let's see what we get into the database. Okay, this is data output and constant output. There we go. So for data output, simulation run name current at time 1, variable ID 1 is 100, and variable 2 at time 1 is 5. So we use execute delete from data output. If I remove that line and I change this current to current 1 and I run the simulation, you see this simulation result here, and then after this result I would get current 1. So but if I keep this execute keyword here, all of these values will be removed and the new simulation result will be written here. So that's it. We already reviewed 2 examples for input and output. I hope you can replicate these 2 examples. I'm gonna upload this file into the address that is coming at the end of this video. If you have any question, just go to that link, go to contact us, and feel free to ask us any question. Thank you.